Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. So our topic tonight is something that has become a bit ubiquitous in our culture, talking about AI. And I remind us that the first word of that is artificial intelligence. And so it is not authentic intelligence, perhaps. So it's a little bit of I am not an authority on AI, not an authority on anything actually that I can think of really. And so nevertheless, I see it influencing our culture, and I simply want to talk about it or open up the talking about it so that as we go forward, perhaps we have room to discuss it further as we go forward. The industrial age, the industrial revolution in around 1850, something like that, opened us up to an age of anxiety. But it was a kind of an external age of anxiety in which we, changed our work lives, we changed our outward lives to accommodate this burgeoning industry building. But now we have something different, and it may be just as impactful in our society, but now it is an inner anxiety. It's a kind of a disturbance that we might be feeling, but it has the same kind of huge effect as we go forward. So it's a bit distressful to think about where we are going with all of this. But the AI started much earlier than most of us think. It started about 1960, actually, in what is referred to in computer land and the invention of computer land in the freshwater section of the country, not on the saltwater coasts of Harvard and Cambridge, or in Silicon Valley on the other seawater coast, but right in the middle of the country at the University of Illinois. And it started with something called Plato, a Plato program, it was called. And that stands for, I have to remember it, Programmed Logic for Automated Teaching Operations, PLATO. I don't know how Plato would feel about that, but I will say something about Plato a little bit later, or as a teacher in the New York Times said this morning, bringing up Plato. But in any event, right away, Plato brought about the kind of the ruination of many, many students because they became addicted very quickly to Plato, which Plato actually was doing many of the things that we are doing now. It was a kind of an email. There were chat groups. Particularly, there were teaching platforms on all kinds of subjects and games. We all remember games. So his students at the university became addicted to these games. They'd not do their studies, they would not go to class, and they flunked out. And there were a lot of them this happened to. So this is really the beginning of the addiction of what this kind of, to me, it's very insidious, but what this format was doing to the mind. So the dangers, of course, are really quite there for us. And I want to then just quote a teacher from this morning. She wrote an opinion piece in the New York Times this morning. So she's talking about the fact that students, it's a huge problem in education right now. So she's talking about the fact that it's a contemporary moral problem, for one thing, because a bunch of students, a lot of her students turned in AI written essays. And this was in a philosophy class. So she says, my situation was hardly unique. Rampant AI cheating has been reported all over the country, but I felt a dread I struggled to express until a colleague articulated the problem in stark terms. Quote, "Our students are about to turn subcognitive." Subcognitive means that we won't have the same cognitive abilities if we go forward with this. At stake are not just specialized academic skills or refined habits of mind, but also the most basic form of cognitive fluency. To leave our students to their own devices, which is to say, to the devices of AI companies, is to deprive them of indispensable opportunities to develop their linguistic mastery, and with it, their most elementary powers of thought. This means they will lack the means to understand the world they live in or navigate it effectively. So she goes on to talk about, let me see where we get to Plato in here. So, okay. AI is hardly the first technology to threaten our cognitive competence. Long before ChatGPT, the smartphone, and the calculator, Plato, this is the real Plato, not the Plato program, Plato warned against writing itself. Literate human beings, he foresaw, would not use their memories. He was not entirely wrong, but few of us would consider this a bad bargain. The written word is, after all, the condition for the survival of all these very same Platonic dialogues across 2 millenniums. Great gifts have often come at great costs. The question is always, are they worth it? So she goes on to lament, of course, the loss of the capacities. But at the end of this, she also says there are loads of professors who think this is not such a bad idea. It's inevitable, and we just should accept it. Granting its potential downsides, many educators insist that widespread AI use in education is inevitable. AI enthusiasts such as Princeton's Graham Burnett claim that literacy is a historical aberration, no longer fit for this world. Outside a few elite institutions, Dr. Burnett argues, there will soon be no point in asking students to read books. Teachers should instead ask students to do stuff with short texts. Sing them, memorize them, cut them up into little pieces and stick them on the walls. That's still in quotes. In other words, we ought to welcome a return to a society where functional literacy is reserved for the privileged few. So she is certainly lamenting this sort of thing. I know that when I was in the classroom, we didn't have AI, but we did have plagiarism. And so I'm familiar with dealing with plagiarism, and I found it very insulting because I always caught it. I mean, it was just so obvious. So anyway, so we have an unconscious adaptation to this AI material. And we are also being socially engineered. I know I have to do Times games. I feel an addiction myself. And now, not only are the games there, but we are going to get badges. They are now going to give us badges for the games that we do, Spelling Bee or Wordle or something. So there are these lures that keep pulling us along to do things, to stay connected and not give up. Most of us have given up our phone landlines, so we are addicted to the little screen that we hold in our hands, and we keep checking it. And that addiction is insidious and harmful to our minds. So let me talk about the Greek, the real Plato, for a moment too. And I talk about him because AI is actually emotional influencing. It's an emotional connection. And so it's something that we really must pay attention to. Now, mind you, Zen is not psychological. It is not a psychological practice. It is not a philosophical practice. And yet I'm going to talk about this because hopefully by the time we get to be 40 or 42, something around there, we will have solved our own psychology and kind of put it to rest so that we know who we are and we aren't trying to figure ourselves out any longer. And that's generally the case for most of us in our growth. But I want to speak particularly a little bit about Plato because he has influenced so much of our philosophy, and the Jungian psychology is deeply influenced by Platonic teachings. And Plato very much felt that one's soul was most important. For me, the soul is not, I don't carry it as an immortal soul, although Plato did, but I carry it as the essence of myself, something that enlivens me and sits in my body and surrounds me and is the enlivening force. So the notion of soul to me is a really important matter. We've talked about it now and then, and I've spoken about it before, but Plato was very much about soul and very much about living virtue of justice and wisdom. 2 points that are really important, I think, in our society now. Maybe the absence of wisdom and the need for justice. So in the end of Plato's Republic, it's about the last 4 pages. It's very, very interesting. It's called The Myth of And I'm telling this because later on, when Jung and Hillman come about to reimagine the Platonic philosophy, they will talk about what's our purpose here, what's our calling, and what are we doing. So this myth of that is in Plato's Republic deals with this business of calling and what it's about. So the story of, and when we say myth with Plato, the myth of it doesn't mean a mythic thing, it means a story more than anything. So is the character, is telling the story. And was a soldier, and he fought in battle, and he was killed. So after 10 days on the battlefield, they brought in all the bodies, they lined them up, and body had not decomposed. And then after another 12 days, they were cremating all the bodies, and they placed body on the top of the funeral pyre, and he suddenly woke up. And he said to everybody, he says, "I am a messenger, and I have come to tell you what it was like on the other side." So he reported that there are shafts of light that go up on either side of one central shaft of light. And there's a shaft of light that's not so light for the bad guys, the bad people who've done bad things. And they try to come back up. Plato believed in reincarnation, by the way. So they tried to come back into being born again, but they're shoved back down with roaring, yelling, screaming fire that they must stay where they were. Because for every bad deed or every person, for instance, that they killed, they have to do 1,000 years and pay that penance, and they may not come back up. On the other side is the shaft of those who have lived lives of quality or goodness or virtue. And they go back into the underground or the under earth for a time being, but then they come back up. So was brought up then with 19 other beings who were brought up. And the process is that they all stood together, and then lots were thrown. Whether you receive your lot in life. So the lots were thrown down, and they each went in order of what time they had served beneath or what their goodness was, and they were free to pick a lot, something that they were going to live and do in their next life. And so you could pick being, a great governor. You could pick being, somebody who nobody knew particularly. You could pick somebody who worked in service or was a doctor. You could pick anything because all this array of possibilities were there. You could also pick an animal. And so in turn, each one picked their lot. And then the next thing is they came to this center point part of the shaft of light, which had 8 levels to it. And there were these spinning, these spiral things spinning around, and each level had a siren. Siren were those women who sang, right? And so they created this gorgeous, gorgeous sound. And these spirals then would whip around in these 8, I can do backwards. So they went like this, each alternating as they went along these. And their beautiful sounds sang. And the people who had chosen their lots also got to sing with them. And this was called the lap of necessity. And then after they came into the lap of necessity, and these spinning things are the lap of necessity that keep life going. They just whirl around and keep life going, and they sing this undertone of beautiful voice. And then there were 3, I don't think they were goddesses, I think personages, I will call them. And one is Lachesis, the next is Clotho, and the next is Atropos. And the first one is the past, then the present, and the future. And so then each one has to go, after they've chosen who they're going to be, then they go through this choosing of moving through the past, and then they go through the present and they see the future, and then they go through this ratification. And you may not change your mind. You have to stay with what you pick. So they go through this ratification of their destiny, and then they go once again to necessity, and then they go through the plane of it's the plane of forgetfulness. And then they must drink water from the river Careless, and they forget everything. Was not allowed to drink from that because he was coming back to tell us of what this whole process was for each of us. And then they are carried away to be born. And then they move up in the upward path through this light channel, and they are born. Now they are also given a guide, and they choose who their guide is. And that guide will stay with them for their whole lives, helping them through whatever it is they're going through. The guide isn't going to force them in a direction at all, but the guide is going to help stabilize them and maybe point out some wisdom in some ways, or move them a little bit, or I should say us, toward something that will assist them in some way. So this question about the deep psychology is about this question of what is our calling. And this comes out of Plato, this myth of I just find it fascinating myself. I just think it's so interesting. And there's a Jewish legend about this forgetfulness, that when you are being born, an angel comes and puts the angel's finger right here, this little dip in your ear, and puts the dip there to remind you to be silent, to forget what you are come to do. And so that's what this little dip is, to remind us, to remember of our calling, to remember to pay attention to our lives. But we can't speak what it is. We don't know what it is. And yet here we are, trying to figure out the deep psychology of our lives. So why is this important now? I feel this is so important because this is our connection to soul and our living, a deeper matter than some screen that's sitting on the counter. But to pay attention to the deep aspects of our lives. So where is Dogen Zenji in this? Well, I said that Zen is not a philosophy and it is not a psychology, and yet we are being psychologically influenced by AI, and we have to look at it. We have to become conscious of it. But I also want to say that consciousness itself, consciousness is an aggregate. It's like your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. Consciousness is the same kind of thing. It is an avenue, perhaps, through which we can enter the awareness of awakening, in which we can make ourselves toward awakening, give rise, through consciousness, through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, we can give rise to the awakened mind. You heard that frog? You all heard that frog? That's a possibility. That's a possibility to have that frog, sound of frog awaken. There are many stories of people who have been awakened, had an awakening experience by the sound of a frog, or the sound of a blossom falling on a table. So it's through our sound, through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, consciousness, that we are able to connect with the body of awakening. We are the whole body of awakening. And so it's through these aggregates, through these possibilities of that are part of our whole consciousness that allows us to stand with Dogen. So this particular writing by Dogen, I don't like it a little bit because, oh, look at, there's a beautiful spider. Stay. I'm not afraid of spiders though, but stay. So Dogen uses the word demons, or at least in this translation. First of all, Dogen Zenji is our founding teacher, for those of you who are new tonight. He's our founding teacher, and he writes in medieval Japanese. And medieval Japanese then was translated into contemporary Japanese and then translated into English. So we get this distancing from the actual language. And so this word, this translator used the word demon to describe those forces that hinder us in living a good life, for instance. Or maybe we have some particular habits that are not helpful to our lives. And so they're referred to as demons. And so again, I haven't found another word that I think is better here. But so I will use the word, but understand that it doesn't mean fierce demons coming after us at all. It just means those things that hinder us. So he's talking about the sense organs, that eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, along with the 6 sense objects of form, sound, smell, taste, sensation, and thought, and the 6 sense consciousness, that is the awareness of each organ that allows perception to occur. So consciousness then, we're aware of sound and smell and taste and touch and all of those. And so that is the organ that allows us to perceive the world that we are in. So once again, consciousness itself is not awakening, even though we may think of it, oh, that person is really conscious. Good, they're aware of a lot and perceive a lot, but awakening is something else, is a step outside of that. So he's talking about the disturbing passions, the 5 components of existence, the demons of death, and the celestial demons of desire. And all of these are hindrances that disturb us, that get in the way of our being able to be clear in our lives, to be able to live a good life, to be able to be confident in our lives and confident in our practice. So talks to them about the disturbing passions we call the component of perception. So all of these are capable then of disturbing us. Well, we can look at porn on computers and have disturbing images then, or we can look at a lot of very disturbing films that have a great deal of killing in them that those disturb us, and so that's going in through our eyes, and those are disturbing passions. We were at a Zen conference recently, and I was sitting with one of the teachers, and she was saying that she was on the plane coming from Oregon down to Los Angeles, and it was a 2.5-hour flight, and there was a young man sitting next to her who was who was doing a game. And all he was doing was killing people. And she said he did that for 2.5 hours. Would you get me some water, please, over there? Would you get me some water, please? I was closest to the door. Amir. Anyway, that's what he did for 2.5 hours. He just shot people in this game. And she wondered, what does that do to one's soul? And what does that do? And that is a kind of addiction, of course, that we are talking about, that we become attached to, a kind of a demon of hindering passion. So we can be hindered by any of these gateways, our eyes, our ears. We can listen to outrageous kinds of things. Here once again, everything is available to us now on computer, on whatever, and we can hear everything we want to hear, and sometimes very disturbing stuff. So thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. One of the saddest things to me as I age is my voice, that my voice is getting old. I used to have a great voice, loved chanting and singing, and just not there anymore. And it's age that just, rattles all of this stuff. But anyway, Dogen points out that the celestial demons are the lords of the world of desire. They're deeply attached to worldly pleasures and engage in ulterior motives to gain them. They give rise to fallacious views. They despise and envy the words and ways taught by all the sage and saintly ones for realizing nirvana, which is why we call them the celestial demons. And he's got lists and lists of of demons and what have you. I want to read just a little bit then toward the end, and then we can have some discussion. So at the end of this discussion, which is on giving rise to the enlightened mind, is what Dogen is talking about here. He's talking about all of the ways that we can be thrown off course. And he says, someone once asked me, actually, this is not Dogen speaking here in this quote. This is Nagarjuna, one of the great philosophers in Buddhism. Someone once asked me, the one category of the demons of the 5 components of existence embraces the other 3 types. So why do you separate them into 4? He's gone into different categories. I replied, truly, there is but one demon, but in order to clarify what that one means, there are the 4. So the preceding is what our ancestral master, Nagarjuna, taught. You trainees should remember it and diligently study it. Do not regress or turn away from enlightened mind, vainly concealing demons of fascination. So do not regress or turn away from enlightened mind, vainly concealing demons of fascination. And this is what I feel AI is a demon of fascination. Something thrown in our way, literally controlling our society these days. And it's a serious matter. There's another thing that I want to quote here, back in the psychology piece, and I think it explains some of why we are the way we are, or where we've gotten to where we are. Hold it. So when we become unconscious, this comes from a writer named Robert Lifton, who wrote a book called The Protean Self. And the question is, are we being socially engineered? And are we dissociating from the world around us? Are we dissociating from our own lives? Are we dissociating from the people we live with and the people we work with? And he says, are we dissociating? When consciousness becomes dissociated, then fundamentalism arises with absolute dogma. That is most interesting. And I just found that to be fascinating, because when we dissociate, we're not important to one another anymore. The people around us are no longer human. We're not interested in feeding our children right now. Well, we are, but not the right people. Are we dissociating in such a way that we become fundamentalism takes over? Because there is no longer the humanism and the care of one another that comes about. So let me describe this better. The protean self. The protean self is the adaptive self. We talk about certain people who are protean types. They could do so many different things, and they're capable of being excellent at a whole bunch of things. And that's a kind of a protean person. And so when that protean person stops or dissociates, then becomes a fundamental self, and dogma takes over. And I think we are seeing that very much so in our society. We are seeing this force going in one particular direction, and that we're all to join into it and follow. And we are no longer given choices in art, in music, and so forth, all being directed in a particular way. Very dangerous times we are in. So at least that is the shadow side, the dogmatic self that gives up the fluidity of the protean self becomes dogmatic and straight and cannot adapt any longer. And so dangerous times. Something went in one ear and out the other a moment ago. So okay. I've got all kinds of little notes here. Danger of a post-human world that we are in. Are we coming into a post-human world in which the computer takes over? We are being told that the human mind is like a computer, and if the computer can do everything, then we don't have to do anything anymore. We don't have to think. We don't have to be human. We don't have to worry about anything. So is that what we are coming to? So that's about what I got. And this is just to open the topic, because it's a huge topic, and we have, how do we maintain in the midst of this? Well, we really can keep ourselves together. There's several things. Art is one of the most important forces in maintaining our connection to humanity. Very important. You can garden, you can sew, you can, whatever it is that's artistic, that is expressive, because it's really, really important to be expressive right now and to bring some joy in the creation and doing of an art. What else did I write down here? Meaning and purpose in life is deeply important. So maintaining our sense of soul. We were talking a couple of months, it's got to be ages ago now. I was talking about, remember the soul business?
Form inaugurates soul.
Form inaugurates soul, soul inaugurates form, right. We were talking about, the question was, what's the difference between art or creation of something artistically and zazen? And so that's what we came to, was that soul, in the creating of a poem, soul initiates, like that word, initiates form. In zazen, we come to the cushion and form initiates soul. So this soul within us, or the soul that we are, initiates, and we must continue to initiate in ways that affect the world in better ways that we need to do right now. Stay away from the intoxication of the screen, the intoxicating screen. So, okay. Goes on and on. It's a very big subject. I meant for this to be initiating so that as a community we can come and talk about it and share our intoxications.
Uh-oh.
Interesting, huh?
He's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a protean self, shapeshifter. So, any thoughts, questions? I realize that I threw a whole batch of stuff out there, but that's where I'm at. Yes, yes.
I have many reactions to some of the things you said, some of which I didn't understand at all.
Okay.
As always, I'm
That's okay.
amazed by your scholarship and erudition. I just want to say that in terms of demons,
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah.
You see them every night on the evening news. But yet, I still watch the evening news because I want to know what's going on. Most of it's bad, but I want to know. So that's my take on demons.
So I do the same thing. I'm a World War II baby. I have to see the news. I have to know what's going on because I came out of the time of the Holocaust. And so I need to know. I say that when those things happen, we can know the truth when we are watching that and understand the truth of that so that we transform that within ourselves, so that we aren't receiving the demon into us. We are transforming false claims. We're transforming lies into truth and remembering the truth.
Yes, that's not quite what I'm speaking about.
Okay.
I'm speaking about, yes, you do that. You see a lot of propaganda masquerading as news. But what I'm talking about is you see people in Jamaica being destroyed by a hurricane. You see people in Darfur torturing each other. This is what I mean by demonic. But I want to watch it because I want to know.
All right. So you know that in those situations, you know that your deep humanity is intact when you see that and you're horrified. It's if you see that and you're not horrified, it's time to worry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can also, I do believe in the sending of merit. And you can pray for those souls who are caught in, and send merit to them, who are caught in that tragedy.
Yes. Yes, I had forgotten about that.
Yeah. And I know we don't think of so much as prayer in Zen practice, but Zazen is pure prayer. It is absolutely pure prayer. And so we can sit holding the world of disaster in this mudra, this universal mudra, and send that, sense of dignity and soul giving force to them. And we have to do that. I mean, if we lose touch with the world of suffering, that is one of the elements of dissociation. If we don't realize that people are going to lose their food, and they're not going to be able to have their food stamps, isn't that what we call it now still?
Yes.
Food stamps. SNAP program. If that's not in place, and our government doesn't care about it, there's dissociation taking place, and there is a dogmatic belief going on, fundamentalism going on. So that's why I say very dangerous times, because of the impact on us of the screen, the seduction of the screen. So thank you, Mickey. Yeah. Anybody, questions, anything? Yes, Amir.
I guess I hope this isn't too much of a digression from what you were talking about, but there's another dimension with AI, and that's what happens behind the curtain is that the data centers use obscene amounts of energy and water
Oh, yes.
resources.
And an obscenely amount of your personal information, and mine, and everybody in this room.
Sure. Language learning models.
Absolutely. And, to manipulate society.
So in state government, we're still coming up with policies on how we're gonna use AI, and the governor sets up a task force. And I asked the question, is the task force considering the environmental impacts through my own agency? I don't talk to
Yeah.
the governor's office.
Right.
And it doesn't sound like it, so we're barred from buying single-use plastics, like you couldn't go buy plastic forks, but we can use all the AI we want.
Yeah. Yeah.
So someone's gotta shine a light on that a little bit.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Yeah.
so I was just listening to, I don't know who it was, some producer out of Hollywood, and he was talking about how people who are podcasters and influencers are starting to really take over Hollywood and that medium of film. And everybody now has a camera that they can make a movie with. And so, when you say everybody has to be artistic,
I didn't say everybody has to be artistic.
or they have to create art.
Well, no, I didn't exactly mean it that way. Not everybody has to do that.
Right.
But it's helpful to our society.
Right, so there's
Yeah.
gonna be this explosion of what they call these, 1-minute movies,
Oh,
10-minute movies,
yeah.
where everybody's posting on YouTube and the other platforms. And it seems to me that if we're still communicating, even though it's through this medium, we're still communicating, and I don't see how the sense of community is gonna go away, and that we're just, in some respects, creating communities, but ones that we're just not as familiar with.
So are you talking in-person communities
Well,
or online communities?
both. I mean, the communities first are created online, and then at some point, you know, those people, at least to my thinking, at some point they're going to want to meet face to face. I mean, because that's never going to go away.
Yeah, but we know what Zoom has done also. I know that we have people on Zoom here tonight. We have 2, 4, 5 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on Zoom. And I know that that's really important. But we also know during the pandemic, when we were all on Zoom and we were not getting together, what happened.
And it was awful.
Yes, it was awful. It was awful.
Yeah.
So whether we lose I so appreciate that we sat together without any screens here in this room tonight for this time, which is very wonderful. And on Saturday, you all sat with all day in a one-day retreat, which is also excellent and remarkable to do. And we need more of that for certain. So I worry, of course, about the online communities. And so I don't know yet. I mean, we don't know. We don't know how it's all going to work out. We don't know. I don't know everything. I don't know anything, actually. So,
And so I think, you know, the experiment that's being run or that we are running on ourselves is so well underway. It's so, I mean, you mentioned 1960 and
yeah.
the cascading snowballing, and it doesn't feel like too much to say a kind of demonic possession that we've submitted ourselves to.
Right.
And the power drain of it is like the power of the demon pulling in as much as possible. So what you have said makes a lot of sense, and it's so well underway that we're gonna, I mean, the outcomes are gonna be arriving over the, you know, it's just too far underway, but also we have a practice like this. We have the practices you mentioned, and Steve, I agree, you can't stop the grass growing in the cracks of Manhattan. So.
Well, on the news, I guess it was in the Times, there's pictures of the storm. And the first thing they said was, their internet is out. As though you care about the internet when your house is falling down, and your car is underwater and you've got nothing left. Internet is out. Yes.
There is an aspect to how artificial intelligence is being used for mass surveillance of vulnerable communities, like the undocumented community. Flock cameras, or there is a specific type of camera that it tracks your locations, your license plates, and like is monitoring you actively, like in China, like with those boxes.
Sure.
And so those are being linked up with the Ring cameras on like your neighbors who have those cameras, like on their front doors. Those are being just come out this month. They're going to be using artificial intelligence, and they're syncing up those systems, and those systems can be used by police. And so,
Of course.
what you're saying about growing up with coming out of the Holocaust, artificial intelligence with mass surveillance and policing, it just is setting up a situation in which you get the wrong, which we're seeing now, but it can, like, it's coming about and it can be perfected. And so I'm just imagining like the Eye of Sauron,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's the infrastructure is actively being built now.
Yes, right.
People are organizing against data centers,
Yes,
which is a really good way to fight environmental racism and classism too, because those,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I'm just like, how can we live without phones? You know, like, I'm like trying to like limit the access of these technologies and really looking at what apps I use and
Yeah,
encryption.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, AI certainly does it for medicine. AI is fantastic because we know that it can diagnose more deeply than doctors can because all of that information can be put into one source. And so in medicine, it's fantastic. So, yes.
Have you seen though that doctors that rely on artificial intelligence for diagnosis then were shown to, as you were talking about, their intelligence decreased?
Oh, definitely. Very definitely. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, if you go to the doctor is looking at questions to ask you. Have you da? Oh, that's fine. Have you, and they're just reading from, the diagnostics. If you say yes to that, then they go over to here. If you say no to that, then they go over to the other column. And so absolutely. But there are certainly areas of medicine where it's been really excellent, diagnosing, strange, difficult cancers and things like that. So, but yeah, there's definitely a loss of, they become artificial intelligence people, not authentic intelligence. So, yes,
Please.
Sorry, it's my first time here. I just wanted to
Yeah.
comment on something new that I've experienced recently with AI is I have some friends that I've communicated with for many years, and I think in an effort to be more concise or express themselves non-violently or not to be emotional, they go into AI and say, how do I say X, Y, Z without offending anybody and being professional?
Yeah.
And then they copy and paste it. And these are friends that I'm having a personal conversation with. I know immediately
Yeah.
it's not in their true voice.
right,
And it sounds very soulless.
yeah, right.
And in that same line, there was a kind of a game going around where people were saying, hey, ask ChatGPT, which I don't have. Who am I at my core, and don't hold anything back. And they were posting it on their social media. And a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, see, ChatGPT knows me so well, this is exactly right. But as I was reading it, I was realizing it was based on all of the things that they had decided consciously to share with the world, so their
Yeah.
Facebook profile.
Right.
So it was, from my perspective, it was refeeding them their own narrative, which was very skewed because so I feel like it is also helping people, harming them by dividing them from their true self.
Right.
Because the feedback loop is
Right.
gonna be skewed.
Right, so they're not authentic. Yeah, think of authentic intelligence, yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
I've
Brian.
watched it,
No. Yeah, no, go ahead.
in business, the language pretty much sounds the same across all different kinds of professions.
Right,
And I write poetry, and where would that come from in ChatGPT? Anyway, where would it come from
yeah,
if
right,
it wasn't your own thoughts and your own existence?
right, right,
It's weird to watch the language change.
yeah,
It's all very professional and, things you said, but it's just one language.
right, yeah. I will say that it does great translations, because I've family in Europe and I write in French and I write in German and Japanese. I'm so multilingual. I mean, it will do a beautiful job of translating, but that to me, I don't think that is problematic, that kind of work, because it's my words
Yes.
that I have created, and then I say, please say that in French, or please say that in Japanese, because I couldn't communicate with my teacher any other way, so, but, yeah. Brian, he was next, yeah, and then please, yeah.
It is. So I do use AI as a compass of sorts, kind of use it to navigate towards curiosities that I have. I do know my way around a research paper, so I use it as kind of a direction to point in. It's how I was able to get an abridged history of the atrocities in Sudan currently.
Sure.
But how do we balance the application of AI and the possible corruption? If we think back to, I think it was 1951, when PRC invaded Tibet and had the Dalai Lama go into exile to basically influence Tibet to try to get it back under China's control. And knowing that data centers are where these language models are fed from, how do we, and I think this alludes to Mickey's point as well, how do we find that middle way where we use it as a resource, a tool, but also prevent ourselves from becoming susceptible to propaganda from data centers that may have been corrupted that are feeding these language models,
Yeah.
especially when we're seeing hyper-realistic videos now
Yeah,
and texts that feel immensely real.
right.
How do we find that middle way of staying engaged to, help save sentient beings around the world while using it as a tool?
Yeah, right. Well, for me, I use ChatGPT today because I was curious about whether Jung had ever referred to the myth of So I use it if it's something that I would look up in an encyclopedia, because it's so quick to answer. So for me, I would use it in that way. I could have gone, onto Google and asked Google or something like that, because I had no other resource. And I was just curious about that. If it's something that, for me, if it's something that I would use an encyclopedia for, then I would use ChatGPT. But I can't answer the other. I don't know how we do that, Brian. The invasion is incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
I just have some thoughts about the conversation, and I think the balance is extremely important, and to remember the good and the bad of every situation, and to be grateful and have gratitude for the things that it gives us. One thing about the online community, not the AI part, but when we were talking about the online community, I want to note that during the pandemic time period, my brain was opened into so much culture and became alive to people all around the world that I had never imagined or met before. And it changed my whole entire self, my whole philosophy, what I believed, what I had been brought up to think. Everything was expanded and was beautifully opened. And it's because of that connection with people that were far away across the world in different environments, doing different things and sharing thoughts with each other. And this opportunity to have this learning in this connection online is so beautiful, and gives the opportunity for so much learning and growth. But then you have the other things that you're talking
The
about.
dark side, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think it's just really important to have a balance and to remember
Yeah.
where you, when you're maneuvering through these opportunities of using different things, to really think about the impact of everything that you are using and doing. Like every time we use ChatGPT, we know that we have a gallon of water that just was used. And we just have to remember the
Yeah.
impact of everything that we do, and then bring balance in our heart and our thoughts, and gratitude for the good, and then just try to keep improving.
Well, that is wisdom within our midst, everybody. Thank you very much for that. And absolutely, there's absolutely that. Yeah, by all means. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah.